מזמור לדוד, אדוני אלוהי לא יחסר, בנותיך יביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי השובב ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך משענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דשנת והשם מראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevarach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. We're gathered here today to express our deep abiding love, honor, and respect, and to say goodbye to our precious Dina, who this week was taken from us. Our hearts are heavy with grief, but also filled with peace and joy, knowing the great gifts of love that Dina gave to family and friends and community. We are here to draw together and remember Dina, her special qualities, times shared, the legacy that she leaves, in order to draw strength from each other. A number of members of the family are going to speak this afternoon. I'd like first to call upon Dina's husband, Aaron.
Я хочу прочесть стихи, посвященные Дине. Вечер нынче прозрачный и тихий. Только знай, что пиши да пиши. Но опять разбегаются строчки. И опять не выходят стихи. Почему? Я не знаю. Но видно, здесь причина лишь только одна. Ведь стихи, они ж пишутся сердцем, а ты сердце с собой унесла.
We had a group therapy session last night. In preparation for today's service, Rabbi Weiss came to our house to talk to us and reminisce. At first, it felt somewhat uncomfortable and maybe a little strange to share our dearest memories of Mom in the presence of someone who had not known her as well as we. But as we started talking, Mom's presence filled the room, and we could not wait to share our fondest, and there are a lot, memories and experiences we had with Mom. Having lived quite a hard life in Russia, and Rabbi will talk more about chronological events of it, having her dad being sent to Gulag camps, having lost her mom at age 17, having gone through not one, but 2 immigrations, having learned nearly proficiently not one, but 2 foreign languages, our mom had created our amazing big family in the process. And it's not only the size that matters, but the incredible closeness, the immense love, and the boundless kindness she had weaved through each and every one of us. Mom started experiencing symptoms of this horrible disease 2 years prior to being actually diagnosed with it. But in spite of feeling progressively more and more short of breath and fatigued and unstable, she kept going. She kept helping us every single day with kids and driving and cooking and cleaning. Out of sheer determination, she drove independently to Severance Hall to listen to the Cleveland Orchestra concert merely a few days before going to a full respiratory failure. And then after hospitalization and after the diagnosis, out of sheer determination, she went to Borjalov's house, already on oxygen and walker, but to listen to orchestra concert, but still choosing to enjoy life and music. We were truly, truly blessed to have Mom live at home for the past 9 months. It definitely took a team effort of her amazing home aides who deeply cared and ensured Mom's safety. Ira, Tanya, Natasha, Valia, thank you. Our dear Lucia, constantly bringing homemade food for Mom, and Alec fixing and adapting any little thing we asked him to ease Mom's mobility at home. Our amazing big family, incredible friends visiting from close and afar. But most importantly, it was Mom, who in spite of her growing disabilities, made living at home possible. Her zeal for life and to live independently to the fullest extent possible, moving, walking by herself till the last minute, reading and listening to books, watching movies, going outside, asking us how our day was and what was happening in our lives and in the world. And even in the hospital, while her breathing was still getting worse, she was following the Israeli election results on the phone. Thank you for being here with us today.
Dear Mamachka, you are the strongest, most resilient and selfless person I know. You have created an amazing family and you did everything to always unite us together. I'm not ready for you to go. I thought we had a few more days. Oh, I wish I could tell you how much I love you. And thank you again for the sacrifices you did for us. On Friday, a few hours before she passed away, she wrote that she left letters about her life history for us in her computer. It is truly a treasure. I just wanted to share a couple stories from there. Mom had me at age 42 and was considered a hero by Russian standards to have a third child at this age. It didn't come easy. A couple months after I was born, I developed sepsis, but they didn't know from what. Mom had to get an ambulance that took me to a hospital 2.5 hours away. Parents were not allowed to stay there with their babies. Those were the hospital rules. Every day she commuted 2.5 hours there and back to see me. They had to do blood transfusions in addition to antibiotics to get rid of the infection. Later, Mom developed a very high fever herself and was admitted to the hospital with mastitis. It was the only hospital in Russia for women with severe mastitis. She was in so much pain, and back then, pain relief was the last thing doctors worried about. It gotten so bad that they had to remove a half of her breast to save her life. She was told to continue expressing breast milk from the other breast. That was a very painful task, swollen, and after surgery. She continued to collect milk. Rita would pick up the milk from Mom and take it to me on the other side of town to give it to me. Later on, another mom noticed that every time I would drink my mom's milk, I got worse. So finally, they stopped giving me that milk, and I got better after being there for 3 months. I cannot imagine leaving my baby for 3 months in a hospital 2.5 hours away and not being able to visit. She must have been in a horrible state of mind. Later on, when I was 3 years old, there was a note Mom found in her medical document saying that her milk was infected with staphylococcus, but no one told her about this test result at the time when it mattered. When Mom told me this story when she was still well, I was outraged by medical malpractice. But for Mom, that's just how things worked out, and it wasn't something you fuss about. Probably because even if you do, you will not get anywhere. I guess back then people were just so used to being mistreated and having несправедливость, so you had to believe that government and governmental agencies always know what they're doing and you cannot show doubt. Mom had to go through so many hurdles and treasures in life, starting at a very young age. From losing her baby sister that I'm sure she very much yearned since she was the only child, being left on the street with her mom in the middle of the winter after her dad was taken away by Russian militia because at his work someone made a smear complaint about him, but obviously it was because he was Jewish. He was taken to Gulag, Siberia, for 3 years. And then losing her own mom at a very young age of 17 by herself, taking care of her dad who had stroke and was only able to use one side of his body, having her first love and then letting him go, raising Ritachka by herself as a single mom, having to withstand all the negative connotations that go along with that back in those days, living with my dad, going through 2 immigrations, learning 2 new languages, all of the meanwhile trying to stay independent and have a dignified life. Through her letters, I realized how much guilt she was carrying all throughout her life for different things that happened, things that she didn't have control over, and even if she did have control over some things, even if she did have control over some things, it's okay to make mistakes, but she rarely opened up about them, and I wish I could have helped her get some of the guilt off her shoulders. I wish my Russian was better so we could have more meaningful conversations. She was diagnosed with ALS last November after 2 years of complaining of shortness of breath and not having enough air. She also started having a very weak voice. No one could help her. She suffered quietly, trying her best, until last November, where there were more acute symptoms. Being told you have ALS is a horrible, horrible sentence. Mom's breathing gotten worse and worse over the months, where at first she had to wear the BiPAP mask only at night, then for 14 hours a day, then 20 hours a day. At the end, she could only take it off when she needed to eat or drink. The pressure from the mask caused scarring on her nose. Little by little, she lost her voice completely, and also she couldn't talk because the mask was on her face. So now she was communicating by writing. For months, she struggled to take every breath. She had to do breathing procedures 2 or 3 times a day that take at least an hour each time. Nebulizer, suction, vibrating vest, cough assist, suction, and so on. Swallowing became very hard too. Even swallowing her own saliva. She couldn't cough, she couldn't bring anything up. She was suffocating in her own saliva and secretions. It was painful to watch her go through this, to see her struggling face grimacing with every swallow and breath. She never gave up. She tried so hard to do every procedure and physical therapy exercise to her best. She had hope that she will get better, that there will be a new medication. Even at her last visit to the neurologist just 2 weeks ago, she still was asking how he can help her with removing the mucus, and maybe there is a new medication or advance. She didn't deserve it. No one does. I know that at least now she is not suffering, and maybe her soul has peace. And may her soul have peace. We will always remember her sweet, kind, endlessly giving self. You are physically not here, but everything you have instilled in us is here to stay. Thank you for raising us, worrying about us, giving us each other. Ritachka and Inachka, I am the luckiest person. Love you forever. And I also want to thank the dedicated women that were there every day to help our mom, her aides. Irichka, what would we have done without you? Mom loved you and trusted you. Thank you for all the loving care and support you provided. Tanyachka, Natasha, Valia, thank you for helping Mom to get through this horrible time. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Hi everyone. As many of you know, I'm Ariel, one of Dina's many grandkids. Something you may not know is that this past summer I spent a month in Israel. To be honest, I was terrified. To spend an entire month away from my family when I am constantly surrounded by them was something I didn't even want to think about. The day before I left, I went to visit Grandma and go on one more all too strenuous adventure down the stairs to sit outside in the fresh air, which always included lots of disapproving looks from Grandma when I couldn't find the right house key on the first try. Nonetheless, we made it outside, and I shared with Babushka my nervousness, and she began to go on and on about all the places I would visit and that there, God is working all the time. And somehow, I became excited to go visit this amazing place that she raved about. Before I left, everyone, Maya, Pauline, Mom, Dad, Zina, Rita, Lucia, Alec, all handed me their tiny rolled up notes that I had the job of safely transporting to the Kotel in Jerusalem. Though I could never read them, I knew that each and every single one of these notes spoke something about Dina and how deeply we cared for her. You can imagine then my anxiety of having to keep this tiny bag full of notes safe through 2 flights, a 2-hour bus ride, a very tired and sleep-deprived rabbi tossing our bags out of the bus for us to rummage through, and 1 hotel. But they made it. When we arrived at the Kotel and I tirelessly clutched this bag, I realized that not a single person on my bus of 31 kids held on to something similar. Not a single person had a baggie full of notes from their family. Not one of them was restlessly waiting to put them all in the Western Wall. How lucky am I thought, to hold this little baggie full of notes from my family, all wishing and praying for the same thing. To have sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas at home waiting for me to put their tiny slips of paper into this holy place. To be able to call them later that night and tell them how absolutely amazing the experience was. To be able to stand at the Kotel and pray for the absolute best in life for each and every family member and mean it with every ounce of my being. To even be able to pray and sing and practice Judaism openly when Zina had fought so hard to do so with her family. How lucky am I? Grandma had an innumerous amount of truly amazing qualities, but one that I remember well was her love for Judaism and the ability to embrace it with her family. Every year on Yom Ha'atzmaut, Grandma would take all of the grandkids to the big celebrations around the city and buy us endless tickets for carnival games, Israeli food, and anything else you could imagine. Other times, Mom, Grandma, and I would go to the annual challah bake and for a few hours would just make challah together. Every Hanukkah, all the grandkids and I looked forward to Dina's special 10 gold coins that only she was able to get for us. Every Passover, when it was time to sing Dayenu, Grandma's face lit up as she sang with so much joy and so much love and gathered all the kids to sing with her. Even this past December, when Grandma was in the hospital on the first night of Hanukkah, not 1, not 2, but 6 grandkids and 6 aunts and uncles piled into the tiny waiting room area of her hospital floor, stocked with sufganiyot, gelt, and dreidels, and simply enjoyed the moment. Who knew that even when things appear to be so utterly terrible, that the mere presence of family is able to protect you? I cannot imagine a more accurate description of our family than this. As all we want, all Grandma wants, is for us to be together, no matter the circumstances. So together we'll be. No matter the obstacles, the time, the distance, the illness, we will always be together and with Grandma in our hearts.
So I wanted to do this in Russian because I spoke with my grandma in Russian and she was kind of the biggest factor in helping me maintain the language, so excuse the accents and mispronounced words. На этой неделе я получила обратно оценку по экзамену МКАТ, на который я занималась целое лето. Я моей маме срочно позвонила радостно. Мама была с бабушкой. Она поделилась новостью, и 2 минуты после этого я получила текст от бабушки. Поздравляем! 4 exclamation points. Ты на коне! 2 exclamation points. Рады за тебя! 6 exclamation points. Дина и Аркадий. Позже мама мне рассказала, что в это время, когда я позвонила, бабушка шла в комнату зачем-то, но она не могла вернуться на свое место сама. Мама ее докатила на вокере. Это, конечно, было тяжело Дине, но перед тем, что она даже села обратно в ее кресло, она убедила, чтобы послать этот текст. И так она всегда и была. Независимо от обстоятельств, она всегда ставила других перед собой. Каждый день, когда мы возвращались домой из школы, бабушка ждала дома, ожидая, чтобы спросить, как прошел день, что-нибудь интересного случилось, расскажите историю какую-нибудь. И мы, тупенькие, сидели на телефонах, давали ей однословные ответы. Мы тогда не знали хрупкости времени. Она же была с нами каждый день, на каждой вакейшене, всегда с нами. Мы не понимали, что один день в будущем у нас не будет такой роскоши. Но со временем я быстро поняла, что у меня было много про что я хотела бы с ней поговорить. И по праву, бабушка была самым лучшим слушателем. Когда я поступила в университет, и мы начали часто говорить по телефону, все мои подружки знали, у меня есть 2 бабушки. Одной из которой мне нужно буквально 30 секунд позвонить, сказать, что все нормально, я живая и целую. Это Люся. И есть другая, для кого мне нужно выделить от полчаса до часа, чтобы добраться до всего. Она внимательно слушала, давала мне умные советы, когда мне это было нужно, и поддерживала меня во всех аспектах. Я долго пыталась перевести на русский 2 главные вещи, которые я научилась у бабушки, но не смогла. Явно русского в этом списке не было. Так, как по-английски говорят, эти 2 главные вещи были the importance of hard work and the meaning of humility. Как многие из вас знают, у бабушки не было самой легкой жизни. Но она была удивительный человек, несмотря на трудности. Одну фразу, которую я ношу со мной, это «Единственное, что они не могут отнять от тебя, это твои мозги». Это моя мама получила от бабушки и передала мне, и то, что я передам своим детям. Она была удивительный человек, несмотря на трудности. Она научила меня, что нет ничего невозможного, если ты приложишь на это усилия. Она была удивительный человек, несмотря на трудности. Даже к концу ее жизни не было ни одного случая, когда она жаловалась, когда она показывала что-то, кроме силы и достоинства, и излучала любовь. Именно эти воспоминания должны поддерживать нас всех. Бабушка была и есть лучшим человеком, которого я знала. Я уверена, что она будет продолжать жить в нас.
Loved. That is what Babushka made you feel the minute you stepped into her apartment, met her for a walk, grabbed a cup of coffee with her, or just said privyet when walking into a family dinner. She had a special way of always making you feel that at that moment you were the most important person to her. You knew she was always proud of you, loved you, and wanted the best for you. Babushka was someone who would truly give the shirt off her back if she thought you were cold. She wanted to help in any way possible and didn't need any credit. One of the qualities, and there were many, that I truly admired about Babushka was her drive. She got an electric engineering degree at a time when she was only one of 3 women in her entire class. When she immigrated, she had to learn a completely new language and then taught high school students physics in that language. After moving again, she needed to learn a 3rd language, which she did, as well as getting a new job in a completely new country. She always wanted to be independent, self-sufficient, and always had a thirst for knowledge. I still remember when she was doing English classes, and she asked Dan if he could help her translate a poem that she had to do as a homework assignment. I remember him coming to me just so impressed with how meticulous and hardworking she was at this task. But that was just Babushka. If she was going to do something, she was going to put her whole heart into it. Even this summer, when I told my family that I was going to update a Vera folder with her new adventures, Babushka was the only one who diligently checked every day and commented on every single picture and every video. That was just who she was: caring, loving, intelligent, and overall just impressive. Whenever I left a visit with her, she always said, "Thank you." And I always said, "Babushka, there's nothing to thank." But in the end, that's not quite true, because really there is something to thank. Thank you, Babushka, for being such an amazing person who I was truly lucky to have in my life, and who I will always remember and love, and whose values and characteristics I can only hope to aspire to.
No matter what, you could always talk to Babushka. Coming over was like a therapy session. You didn't know that you needed. You walked in, she offered you kushin, of course. Котлеты, суп, пирожки, салат, мороженое. Всё, что хочешь. Even when she was sick, this never changed. I remember when I went to visit her in the summer, after a hug and a kiss, she always wrote, "Ну, рассказывай." A simple word, but something people don't really say often, especially when it is so easy to just be sad or give up in her condition. But she never gave up. Even if she had trouble breathing, it didn't matter. She was always there for you, listening and giving advice free of judgment. She cared so deeply for every person. The next week when you came back, she asked about your previous problem and what happened. She didn't just forget what you had told her. Even if your problem seemed small compared to hers, she made you feel so important. When I went to sew at her house over the summer, I was so nervous because I really didn't want to bother her. I was going to do the actual sewing at home to not occupy the space. But she said, no, and motioned for me to push all the tables aside, move the furniture, and complete my project. When I finished, she wrote, "Come back every day." When I went to try on my prom dress at her house, Ida asked, "Ну, какие туфли ты будешь одевать?" And I said, "Ну, ты знаешь мою маму. Наверное, flats или что-то маленькое." Dina was shocked. She wrote to me, "Какие flats? Нужно одевать красивые туфли." And then she emailed me a video of how to walk in high heels. Every time when I looked in her notebook, it always said "Спасибо" to everyone who helped her. She was everyone's biggest fan. I hope I can have the same kindness and compassion in my life that Dina had, and I will remember her forever.
When Maya was doing her high school project, she started working on the documentary movie about happiness. I mean, she talked to me, but I was too busy to react. I was, okay, good. And she talked to my mom, who, like you heard, was taking each person very seriously. So, Mom actually left on, and as you already heard from Alan, on her computer, we didn't know, but starting from June, she was working for letters for all three of us and for all grandkids. Not just one paragraph, it's like pages telling about our life and her life, and all our letters are different, and a lot of things we didn't realize because. So it also was in her folder, this project Happiness. So as you already heard, during the summer, Ina organized Ariel and Maya that some of the shifts, they were coming and they were helping Mom to get outside just at least for half an hour. So this is from her computer, Project Happiness. I'm sorry, because Mom wrote in Russian. Сегодня у меня несла службу моя лучезарная Маечка. Она задумала замечательный проект – сделать фильм о счастье, как его представляют разные люди. Я желаю ей осуществить эту задумку и приступить к делу немедленно. Составить план, договориться об интервью, придумать диалоги, найти подход к каждому человеку, раскрыть его душу. Это все требует, это все не быстро делается, время. Дальше я читать не буду, потому что она дает конкретные ей советы, там, как начать, что, чего. А потом она не была уверена, что она сама сможет рассказать ее понимание счастья. И она оставила параграф, который я хочу прочитать, как бы мамино понятие счастья. А в моем плачевном состоянии счастья – это возможность видеть всех вас, мои дорогие, моя семья. Мне трудно общаться. К сожалению, моя немота и слабость, невозможность сосредоточиться, одышка, постоянная борьба за каждый вдох и выдох изматывает. И все же я рада, что моя мечта о большой, дружной, красивой семье осуществилась. Я чувствую вашу заботу и любовь, привязанность и огромное желание облегчить ситуацию, самоотверженность и жертвенность Ритули, трезвый, практический и четкий подход к разрешению разных проблем и Нуси, желание и стремление проявить большую заботу о Лусе, поддержку и внимание моих дорогих сыночков и ближайших родных, всегда приходящих на помощь, и моих дорогих внуков и внучек, одно прикосновение к которым придает силы. Будьте дружными, любящими, близкими, родными всю свою счастливую жизнь. И вот оно, счастье.
It's so beautiful to hear each of you speak about your great love for Dina, your wife, mother, babushka. And your words touch all of us very deeply. The rabbis of the Talmud say that Darim hayosim min halev nichnasim lalev, that words which come from the heart penetrate the heart, and your words most certainly penetrate our hearts today. I do have to confess that my knowledge of Russian doesn't go beyond a word or two, so I didn't really understand the content that each of you shared when you slipped into your mother tongue. But I almost didn't have to, because in the inflection of your voice, in the look in your eyes, I could see the depth of your love and your passion, how much she lives in each of you, how much she means to each of you. And I found that very deeply moving. Our hearts go out to all of you. To you, Aaron, who was such a loving husband to Dina. And to you, Margarita and Gennady and Ina and Igor and Alla and Gil, who loved Dina so and to whom she was such a loving and caring mother. And to you, Anna and Dan, Maya, Pauline, Ariel, Michael, Nathan, Matan, Tal, and Rafi. You who were the great jewels in her crown, the source of her great joy and pride. And you loved her so as your babushka. And to Vera, the great-grandchild, who will grow up immersed in the beautiful stories and memories that you all hold. All of you loved Dina in life and are left to revere her memory in death. We pray that God send you all comfort and healing and strength during these difficult days, and that your memories of her are always sweet and give you strength and a source of inspiration and guidance in your own lives. The last chapter in the book of Proverbs is a beautiful poem which is a song of praise of the ideal Jewish woman. They are words that traditionally are sung by a husband to his wife on Friday evening. And they are words very fitting to recite in honor of Dina. What a precious find is a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy and extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her and says, "Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. That was Dina, a woman of extraordinary courage and conviction and strength and love. Her life was filled with many different challenges, and she rose above them all, profoundly impacting you, her family, her students, her friends and community, indeed, in many ways, the whole Jewish world. In a sense, we could say that Dina really lived at least 3 lives. The first of these was her life in the Soviet Union. She was born November 8th, 1939 in Moscow. But by the time she was 4 or 5, her life was already turned upside down by world events. Russia had entered the Second World War in 1941. Her father, who was an engineer, was sent with the family to the city of Saratov to work on a project there related to the war. And though Dina was very young at the time, she retained painful memories of the bombings of that city and what it was like trying to survive with no heat and no food. After the war, the family returned to Moscow. Her father received a promotion to be the head of a department at the factory, but as you heard, he was soon arrested on trumped-up charges and sent off to the Gulag. At the same time, the authorities forced Dina and her mother to leave their apartment and wander the streets in the winter cold. Thankfully, another family took them in. In 1947, her father had a stroke while in the Gulag that left him a paraplegic. In 1953, after Stalin died, there was a rehabilitation program. He was allowed to return to Moscow so he could receive medical care. But by this point, he was a paraplegic, and though he lived at home with the family, he spent most of his time in the hospital. And then Dina's mother died at the young age of 38 when she was only 17. She lived with her father, but given his condition, she was pretty much on her own, responsible for taking care of herself and him. In other words, Dina really had no childhood at all to speak of. Certainly not what we would think of as a normal childhood, but instead a childhood that was filled with chaos and turmoil and fear, in which she was forced in many ways to raise herself. And yet, despite all that hardship, Dina excelled in her studies. She finished high school early and at the head of her class. She was accepted to a very prestigious university in Moscow, the top school in the country for engineering. Only 4 girls were accepted into that class. In the USSR in those days, engineering was a man's world. But Dina broke that glass ceiling. She finished her degree at the age of 22 and became an electrical engineer, and she landed an excellent job. She got married, and Rita, you were born. She looked after you with great love. Her work required extensive travel, and so she replaced you in the state-sponsored summer daycare program. You were 5 or 6 years old at the time, and that daycare program wasn't like the daycare programs we think of here where you're dropped off before work and picked up in the afternoon. This was overnight daycare, like a summer camp, away for 3 months at the tender age of 5 or 6 years old. We can imagine how difficult that had to be for a mother. And it was compounded by the fact that her travel meant she was not able to visit on official permitted visitation days. But as with everything else in her life, Dina found a way to overcome that challenge and to see you, Rita. She learned that if she did the laundry for the whole class, they would allow her to take you for a walk for 2 hours and to feed you. And that was typical of Dina throughout her life, always finding ways to overcome every challenge. Ina, around the time you were born, your parents became very Zionistic. Your uncle's family left for the U.S. around 1979, and in 1980 your parents applied to leave the Soviet Union to go to Israel and were refused. They were labeled refuseniks and enemies of the state, and for 9 years they struggled under the official harassment that came with being refuseniks. Dina was not initially fired, but Aaron, you were, and over time you both had to change jobs many times. It was during this period that Dina switched from electrical engineering to computer programming, making the adaptation necessary to survive. During these 9 years, Aaron, you and Dina became activists standing up to the Soviet Union. You organized to host visitors from the U.S., especially from here in Cleveland, who would bring Judaica supplies and especially videos about Zionism and Judaism, which you showed to fellow Jews in your apartment. The two of you also helped organize a Jewish Sunday school that rotated apartments so as to evade the KGB. 50 students met each Sunday to study together in one apartment after the next. And during those Sundays, when the two of you hosted them in your apartment with your family, Dina would cook lunch for all of them. That was no small task, given the food shortages, how long one had to stand in line, how hard it was to get enough food just for the family, let alone for 50, and then to do it without drawing the KGB's attention. You also hosted Hebrew language classes in your apartment for adults in the evenings. Jews coming to those classes had to use a secret knock to enter. Often spies for the KGB would come. You could always tell by the way they were obviously snooping about, as if they wanted to let you know that you were being watched and monitored. At one point, when relations warmed a little with Israel, there was still no embassy in Moscow, but there was a consular attaché, and he would, the Israeli attaché, come and visit your apartment. In Aaron, you went even farther, attending many anti-government protests, and as a result were beaten and arrested. All of this undoubtedly made Dina very afraid. How could she not be? She knew well from her father's own experience how ruthless the Soviet authorities could be, how real the threat was against the family for standing up against the government. She saw the threat to Arkady, the physical harm he endured. She knew the whole family was in danger. But as in her childhood, so now too, as a young woman of great strength, conviction, and courage, a true hero of our time, she stood up for what she believed in, along with you, Aaron, together. insisting on holding on tightly to your Jewish identity and heritage, studying it and learning it, teaching it to others at great risk, instilling it in your family. It is only because of the heroism of people like Aaron and Dina that the Iron Curtain fell and that our people became free. It is a legacy that she leaves to each of you in the family. A legacy of commitment to the Jewish people, to the Jewish heritage, to Israel, a commitment to freedom. And I would say one also cannot underestimate the debt the whole Jewish world owes to you and others like you, who stood for what was right and defended who you are. Alla, you were born in 1982. As you said, your mom was 42, and it was unheard of in the Soviet Union at that time for a woman of that age to have a third child. You went to the same daycare as your niece Anna, who was just a few years younger than you. Then, finally, in 1989, your family was allowed to leave the Soviet Union, and the second chapter in the life of Dina and of your family would begin. Rita and Gennady, you and your family moved here to the United States. Ina and Alla, you made Aliyah to Israel with your parents. Going to Israel was your parents' dream, but it was also very hard. It meant learning a new language, government bureaucracy, and culture, and starting all over again from the bottom professionally. It was full of many frustrations and obstacles. But Dina was again determined to get ahead and be able to take care of her family. She mastered Hebrew, and she landed a job as an assistant in a physics lab at a high school. It was a very good school, and she loved working with the teens. But teaching did not provide enough support for the family. So when school let out at 2 p.m., she would travel around by public transportation, taking buses to homes in cities and towns and moshavim, traveling to kibbutzim, selling insurance. The family lived first in Kiryat Yam and then in Natzeret Ilit. She worked in Haifa, an hour's commute each way on public transportation. Yet despite the many challenges, Dina and Aaron loved living in Israel and built a beautiful life there for each of you, the family. Meanwhile, Ina and Igor, you met here in the States and made your life here. And that now meant that 2 of Dina's 3 daughters were in Cleveland. Despite her love of Israel, she felt the pull to unite the family, to be all together, and to be with the entire family. She wanted this so badly that though she was only 3 years away from receiving her pension, she chose to give it up in order to come here. That surely was not an easy decision, as it would make for more financial challenges. And there were times she expressed later that she regretted that. And yet, in some ways, clearly she didn't. She knew the trade she was making, and she knew what was more important to her. It was all of you. Nothing in the world mattered as much to her as bringing the whole family together and being with you in one place. She cherished family so deeply. And so began Dina's third life in America. Again, a difficult immigration with a new language, new bureaucracies, new culture, having to establish new friendships and seek new jobs. Although you weren't so thrilled with coming to the States, you were very settled in Israel, had all your friends there, and were concerned and nervous about coming to a new place, leaving behind everything that was familiar. To try to help appease you and convince you to make the move, your mom decided your dog Chunya should come with. The whole extended family moved into a large rental home together. And here in the States, Dina even had to learn to drive late in life on top of all the other adaptations so that she could get around the city. She was so determined to stand on her own 2 feet that she managed to land a job at a dental office entering data, a job that gave her medical insurance so that Rita and Gennady, as her sponsors, you would not have to pay for it. She was determined that she would be independent and not depend upon you. And she also joined B'nai Yeshurun, our congregation, and began teaching in our religious school, which she would do for many long years. I remember Dina best for her teaching. That's how I got to know Dina when I came to the synagogue, and she was teaching in our school. She was so good with the kids. She had a gentle but firm way about her, and the kids all loved her and respected her. They always enjoyed her class. It was always filled with fun activities. She knew how to create games to hold their attention, and they would always learn. Susan Weiner, who was the director of our school at the time, shared with me today that Dina was, in her words, a very special teacher and a true gift to our school. She worked as a tutor with students who needed extra attention with their Hebrew. Her gentle approach and her warm smile were effective tools, as was her facility with Hebrew. She added that it was a true privilege to have her on our faculty, a sentiment with which I very much agree. And you all shared with me, and I was very touched, that she loved teaching in our school, and that you said she would never let you schedule anything for her on her teaching days. Dina's kindness and her teaching helped prepare a whole generation of young people here in Cleveland for an active life as engaged Jews. In a sense, this was a natural extension of those Sunday school classes back in Moscow, of the high school teens in Israel. Just as she sought to shower each of you with love, to teach you life lessons, to empower you to succeed in life, so she thought that for all the children that she worked with. From the beginning to the end, in Moscow, Israel, and Cleveland, she helped shape the hearts and minds of young Jews, give them the skills, and implanted in them the desire to use those skills to keep Jewish life vibrant. Yet for all of that, it was family that was of most importance to Dina. Aaron, you and Dina would have been married 50 years this January, half a century in which you faced many difficult challenges, in which you shared in many wonderful life blessings, and in which together through it all you built this extraordinary family filled with love. Somehow it is fitting that the two of you met on a train. Your life together has been one long journey across the globe. Through it all, you had each other to hold on to. Our hearts go out to you. We pray God should comfort you over the loss of your beloved wife. Dina was an extraordinary mother. She was loving, accepting, and giving. And she was an equally wonderful, loving, caring babushka, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She was always there whenever you needed her. If you or your children were sick, if you needed to be driven somewhere, if you needed food to be cooked or something to be cleaned, she was there. Indeed, Alice, she was at your home when she went into AFib, full AFib, and she didn't say anything. She could not have been feeling very well, but she was determined to stay, and so she didn't say a word. And once, Ina, you shared that your mother had agreed to cook dinner at your house, and she was not feeling well, and she could not use her arm. You asked if she called 911, and she said, "No, I told you I would make you dinner." Well, it turned out that she had the shingles. She was too busy thinking about you to think about herself. And Ariel, you shared with me when you were in the hospital with mono, she came and spent the entire day with you. And so it was with each of you, her children, the spouses of her children, her grandchildren. And she attended all your special events too. Most recently, Maya, you were in a play at school, Fiddler, and she came to watch you, and she was so proud of you. You have so many wonderful memories. The grandchildren all remember her taking you many times to the Museum of Natural History and sleeping on the floor in the museum with you at the age of 65 or 68 for those museum overnights. And Micah, you recalled how she helped you copy information out of a book about the museum. She made sure each grandchild knew how to swim. She would sign you up for classes, and then she would take you to class, wait for you to finish, and then take you home. And then return to the J herself, where she loved to swim. Ariel and Maya, she would pick you up every day at school. You went to the same school, you got out at the same time, but sometimes, Ariel, you shared that she would pick you up and Maya wasn't there yet. So she would take you home, and then about 10 minutes later, after you were back at the house, she would call her babushka to say, "Can you come pick me up?" And she'd turn right around. Maya, she would pick you up, take you home, and they'd take you all to your after-school activities too. You always celebrated every birthday and Jewish holiday together, and also the secular New Year. You would gather together a few days before. She would cook, you would play games and exchange presents. You loved her cooking. She made the best stuffed peppers and beet salad and eggplant salad. Ina, she taught you her recipe for gefilte fish, which when she taught you, you made it, you said it came out okay. When she made it, it was truly special. And she was a good baker too. And true to her nature, she loved exploring new recipes. And more recently, when she could not cook, she would have one of her aides cook for her. And then she would bring you the food. And you would say to her, who made that? And she would say, I did. But one taste and you knew, because nobody could cook like Dina did. She loved to travel with all of you. Many trips to nearby cabins, trips to the beach in Myrtle Beach, the Outer Banks, to Holiday Valley where she watched the grandchildren so you could ski. Aaron, you and Dina together would go camping with your children, all of you and their friends, and Dina would cook for everyone, and you would sleep on the ground in a tent. And then there was her favorite trip of all, that cruise. How she loved that cruise. It was for her a dream come true. Dina always told you that anything can be taken away from you except your education and your knowledge. Her family lost everything, but it was her knowledge that enabled her to make a fresh start every time, to continuously rebuild her life and the life of the family. She loved learning. She was always seeking new knowledge. She was always reading, and in the end, listening to audiobooks. And she knew politics very well, both American politics and Israeli politics, and I'm sure also Russian politics. And she stayed current not just with events, but also in technology. She saw technology as a tool that would enable her to stay in better communication with her family. So she had her grandchildren show her what she could do with an iPhone, how to text and FaceTime, how to use Facebook. And Anna, because you had an Android phone, and I sympathize with you because I also have an Android phone, she learned just for you how to use Duo, Android's equivalent of FaceTime. Once, Pauline, when you were in college, you came to visit your grandmother and she was not in her room. You asked the nurse where she was, and the nurse said, "Oh, she took a walk down the hall to the computer to do Facebook." But she did not just rely on technology. She also sent cards and called for every occasion, keeping the whole family and friends together in the US, Russia, and Israel. And she would teach all of you to do the same. Dina was extremely kind, very intelligent. She was outgoing and selfless. She was strong and brave, forgiving, understanding, and loving. She was a good listener. And despite all the hardships and challenges she faced, she could also be at times very silly. And she was also very beautiful. Dina's last chapter and her final challenge began when she was diagnosed with ALS, or really a couple years before that when the symptoms first set in. And yet, as you heard, last November she drove a friend to Severance Hall to listen to classical music, just a short time before she had severe symptoms. And when she was diagnosed with ALS, her response to the doctor in typical fashion was, "You mean I have the same disease as that famous physicist genius, Stephen Hawking?" She knew then there was no cure. but she was determined to live and hold off the progression of the disease as long as possible. Every day of life was precious to her. Every hour she could spend with you, her family. As she grew weaker, she started writing the letters that you heard about, long ethical wills to each member of the family, sharing the family history, sharing her hopes and dreams for each of you, sharing the lessons she hoped that you took from her life. It was her way of saying goodbye. It was her way of making sure that you took into your hearts the things that were most important to her. It was her way of creating a way to hold you and hug you even after she was gone, through the letters, which would forever be a voice for her love for you. Dina recently noted to you that it has been 30 years since you all left the Soviet Union. That was a very important marker for her, a milestone that for her encapsulated everything she wanted to give you. Look what an extraordinary legacy she has left to you, bringing you to live in a country where you could be free to live your life as you choose, where you could be free to live your life as Jews, proudly connected to your heritage. She taught you to have a profound love for Israel. She taught you to stand up proudly for who you are. She taught you that no matter what life throws at you, with courage and determination, you can overcome any challenge. She gave you a life that ultimately was more stable than the life she had, in a community in a free nation where you could pursue your dreams and where you could be nourished by each other. She taught you to cherish that freedom. She taught you the supreme importance of family above all else, to always be there for each other no matter what, to remain close, to look after each other, to care for each other, to support each other through thick and thin, to find joy in each other. She taught you to live your lives with kindness and compassion and to be true to your principles. Dina passed away on Shabbat, and it's considered to be a very special merit in our tradition when you pass away on Shabbat, a sign that you were especially precious in God's eyes because of your righteousness and your piety, because of your special qualities. And certainly it is no surprise then that Dina was taken on Shabbat, a reflection of the greatness that she lived. She was also taken during the month of Elul, and not just any time in this month before Rosh Hashanah, but in the hours before Selichot, the first penitential prayers that we recite late at night, beseeching God to forgive us for our sins, to wipe the slate clean, and to grant us blessing in the coming year. It is our tradition that our loved ones who have passed away before us are our intercessors before God, that they stand before the heavenly throne and beseech God to forgive us and to bless us. And I have no doubt that Dina is right now holding court with Ribono Shel Olam, the Master of the Universe, laying out what she expects for all of you in the coming year, and that she won't give him a moment's peace until he promises to go along. And we say in our prayers, if not for our sake, then God, forgive us and bless us for the sake of the merits of those who went before us, who were greater than us. And certainly Dina's merits are many. And if you are granted 1/10 of the reward that she earned through her goodness, kindness, love, and compassion, through her steadfast devotion to her people, to the cause of justice and freedom, 1/10 of the reward that she deserves for the way she drew you together as a family, then you will receive rich blessing in the coming year. May her memory always be a source of blessing for you and for all of us. And we say together, Amen. Please rise for the memorial prayer.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מלוכה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת דינה במשה ורבקה שלך לעולמם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם. הענב בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסדק כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, ותנוע בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, we pray that you grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of our beloved Dina who has gone to her eternal home. O merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May the Lord be her portion. May she rest in peace. And we say together, Amen. Interment will follow at Mount Sinai Cemetery. The family will be sitting Shiva at the home of Dina's 3 daughters. The schedule is in the obituary and the notice from the synagogue and Berkowitz-Kumin, which days at which homes and which times.